All rise. The Kosovo Specialist Chambers is now in session.
Be seated. Madam Court Officer, please call the case.
Good morning, Your Honors. This is case KSC BC 2020-06, the Specialist Prosecutor versus Hashim Thaçi, Kadir Veseli, Recep Salimi, and Jakub Krasniqi.
Good morning, everyone. I note for the record that the accused are all present in court today. Before we start hearing the evidence of prosecution, witness W04679, there are three preliminary matters the panel would like to address. First, the panel notes that on 11 November 2024, in filing F02706, the defense jointly requested leave to appeal the panel's third oral order of 31 October 2024, an oral order admitting into evidence V0008 pursuant to Rule 77, subparagraph 1. When a party seeks to appeal a decision of a panel for which an appeal does not lie of right according to the law and the rules, that party shall request certification from the panel that rendered the impugned decision within 7 days thereof. Furthermore, pursuant to Rule 9, paragraph 3, time limits run from the first working day after the oral order, decision, or judgment is rendered. Therefore, as P02706 was filed 11 days after the impugned order was issued, before issuing an oral order on this request, the panel would like to invite submissions from the parties and participants on whether this filing should be considered out of time. First, from the Victims' Counsel.
We don't take any position in relation to that delay, accepting as we do that mistakes can happen.
Thank you. Submissions from the SBO.
Nothing to add, Your Honor.
Defense. Whoever wants to speak, or all.
Your Honour, I'm grateful. We would invite the panel, notwithstanding the provisions in the regulations, to consider the appeal out of time. Were this to be a request that would have caused prejudice to any of the parties involved, there of course could be a different course open, but in all of the circumstances, the short delay has caused no prejudice, and in those circumstances that we would ask it still be considered.
Thank you. Anybody else? The panel has heard the submissions of the parties and participants and will issue an order in respect of F02706 in due course. Second, the panel notes that in Disclosure Package 1413 and 1477, the SBO has disclosed revised versions of two documents which were respectively admitted as P00895 ET and P00181 ET. On Friday, the SBO circulated an email requesting that these revised versions replace the versions admitted as P00895 ET and P00181 ET. Any objections from the defense? Appears to be no objection. U0020163 to 002-0208 ET revised 1 will replace the version admitted as P00895 ET and SPOE 00226662 to SPOE 00226674-ET revised will replace the version admitted as P00181ET. This concludes this oral order. The panel will this will be the oral order in this regard. On 15 December 2024, the SPO filed a request concerning presentation cues. This is in filing F02727. On that same day, the panel notified the parties and participants that it would take submissions in response and reply orally in court today. Victims' counsel, any response or reply? Response?
No, thank you.
Defense counsel, any response?
Yes, Mr. President, we would oppose the motion. Our position is that there's an efficiency to allowing duty counsel to see the documents in order to be able to properly advise the witness before the witness takes a stand and during the time the witness takes a stand, and in order to avoid situations where duty counsel says they haven't seen a document or need time to consult. We think there is an efficiency to allowing him to see what's in the queue first and whether any rights need to be asserted with respect to certain documents. With respect to security measures, I note that duty counsel is bound by the same ethical obligations that the rest of us are, and if any other orders need to be issued by the panel concerning security, we have no objection to that. But we'd like to avoid interruptions in the trial. Thank you.
Anybody else from the defense?
Yes, thank you, Honours. We would agree with that submission. This is the prosecution's own witness, and there's no reason why their own witness should know what documents are going to be presented, so that the witness, when they do have a counsel, as in this case, that counsel is the witness's lawyer after all, should not have any documents withheld, and it would ensure a smooth running of the proceedings as well, to have it all done before, rather than interrupting while it's ongoing. Thank you, Your Honours.
Nothing further to add except to support those submissions. Thank you, Your Honour.
We too support those submissions, Your Honour.
The panel will issue an oral order in due course. Oh, SPO? I'm sorry,
Yes, Your
you have a
Honour,
reply?
just very briefly that our request would allow the duty counsel to see the documents just at the same time as everybody else. Thank you. And we refer back to our submissions.
Thank you. And as I said, the panel will issue an oral order in due course. Any questions from the panel on this?
Yes, thank you, Judge Smith. Just maybe for the SPO, what's your position on Mr. Michetic's submission about counsel's ability to provide meaningful advice to the client by having seen the document ahead of time? Do you have a position on that?
Your Honor, the parts, the documents themselves wouldn't necessarily reflect on any inculpatory position. It's about the question that will be asked in court about that document, and therefore there will be no efficiency because any question and any document presented in court will have a specific context of the question, and the adjournment will be necessary no matter what.
I believe, Mr. Dixon, you wish to be heard on a matter of concerning this witness.
Yes, thank you, Your Honours.
And we have read the email. by the
Yes, that does set it out, so I needn't go into that detail. Essentially, our application is for some time after the examination in chief of this witness, so not to disrupt the start of proceedings today. On the basis of the very late notice we received of the change in the order of the witnesses, which only came on Saturday morning on the weekend, having got the preparation notes on the Friday evening. Of course, that wouldn't have been a problem if the witness was going to come later in the week, because it would allow for time to prepare based on the preparation notes and take instructions from our client. So what we're requesting is because of this very late shift, where no reason was given by the SPO, that we are given a period of time after the closure of examination in chief to take necessary instructions, adjust accordingly, and then continue thereafter. We would ask to have until tomorrow morning to start the cross-examination. Having consulted with the other teams, this is not going to affect the timetabling overall this week, Your Honours. We will be cross-examining first on this particular witness. There will not be that much thereafter from the other teams, and the next witness can commence and complete his examination in chief and cross-examination based on the time estimates.
Rather than waste a good deal of time, is there any reason why the other defense teams couldn't do their questioning today first, and then you follow up with your, I assume, longer and more specific examination later?
Well, the first is, Your Honours, I understand that there's not much else from the other defense teams, because this isn't I won't go into the areas if it has to be confidential, but it's a witness that concerns my clients, and therefore that's why I'm going first, and we'll do the lion's share of it.
Well, perhaps we should hear from them first, though, on their examination, and then make this decision as to what delay is necessary. We just don't want to waste a whole half a day.
Yes, and I wouldn't want to do that either, Your Honours. It's just that it is a very late change.
Everyone...
And the prosecution shouldn't be allowed to make such late changes. It's also an important point for the future.
Also, I don't want to get into questioning your preparation, but this guy was expected to testify tomorrow. Are you saying you hadn't prepared yet?
No, of course we had prepared, Your Honour, and we would be ready to proceed.
Which are not that extensive.
But Your Honour, given the nature of the witness's concern, the witness who was meant to go today was meant to go for much longer, so there would have been time to take instructions on the preparation notes and the new documents and all the related matters. And we're not asking for days and days and days, just a short adjournment. Our alternative would be at least to have an hour or two between the two, given the very late change. It has to be acknowledged that the prosecution have done this without reason, without giving any reasons, at the last moment, Your Honours.
You know, we give both sides credit for giving us an honest question or an honest statement. I'm not going to doubt the prosecution has a reason why they can't do this witness in the order that they wanted. They probably wish they could. And I'm not going to doubt that what you're telling me today, but I do think we are not in a position anymore of wasting time, and we're going to be wasting a good deal of time. We're going to start with the prosecution's direct examination. We'll consider this. At the next break, we'll make a decision.
Thank you, Your Honours.
Prosecution want to respond at all?
Your Honor, just briefly to note that the change in the witness order was beyond the SPO's control, and to note for the record that our preparation notes were submitted in line with paragraph 96 of the Order on Conduct of Proceedings.
All right.
Your Honor?
Oh, certainly, Mr. Tully.
I don't have anything to say specifically about this witness, but in anticipation of a witness who's appearing next week, his number evades me at the moment, but he's supposed to be the next witness on Monday. This witness is in a position where he exercised his right to remain silent for the lion's share of information that's anticipated to be covered by the prosecution. They've indicated, I think, 4 hours in direct. We've received more documents added to documents to be used with the witness in court. So we would ask, to avoid anything like this, that we get the preparation notes specifically for him long in advance of what's set out in the order and conduct and proceedings, because as far as we see it, it will be effectively another statement from the witness with new information that we can't possibly anticipate. Thank you.
Response from the prosecution.
No, Your Honor.
All right. Well, go ahead.
Your Honour, can I simply first of all note our support for the position advanced by the Vesely defence in principle in relation to this witness? And secondly, insofar as it helps the court with scheduling, I expect my time estimate for cross to be very much less than the hour previously indicated.
Well, what are you estimating it?
15 minutes or less.
Thank you.
I don't expect to have any questions, but I reserve my position.
Certainly. Mr. Tulloch.
And we are the same. We have no questions at present time. Thank you.
All right. Madam Court Usher, please bring the witness in. Madam Court Officer, please bring us into private session.
Your Honors, we are now in open session, and I can confirm that the protective measures have been removed, and from this point on, the witness will testify without voice and face distortion. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Court Officer. Do you understand that, witness?
Yes.
The usher will now provide you with, I'm sorry, please stand up. The usher will now provide you with the text of the solemn declaration you are asked to take pursuant to Rule 141, Paragraph 2 of the rules. So look at the document and then read it aloud.
Conscious of the significance of my testimony and my legal responsibility, I solemnly declare that I will tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, and that I shall not withhold anything which has come to my knowledge.
Yes, you can be seated now. Witness, today we will start your testimony, which is expected to last approximately 1 day. As you may know, the prosecution will ask you questions first, and then the defense has the right to ask questions of you, and members of the panel might also ask questions of you. The prosecution's estimate for your examination is 1 hour. The defense estimates that it will need approximately 4 hours, and as regards each estimate, we hope that counsel will be judicious in the use of their time. The panel may also allow for redirect examination if conditions for it are met. Witness, please try to answer the questions clearly with short sentences. If you don't understand a question, feel free to ask, and to ask counsel to repeat the question or tell them that you don't understand, and they will clarify. Also, please try to indicate the basis of your knowledge of facts and circumstances that you will be asked about. In the event you are asked by the SBO to attest to some corrections made regarding your statement or statements, you are reminded to confirm on the record that the written statement as corrected by the list of corrections accurately reflects your declaration. Please also speak into the microphone and wait 5 seconds before answering a question, and speak at a slow pace for the interpreters to catch up. During the next days, while you are giving evidence in this court, you are not allowed to discuss with anyone the content of your testimony outside of the courtroom. If any person asks you questions outside the court about your testimony, please let us know. Please stop talking if I ask you to do so, and also stop talking if you see me raise my hand. These indications mean that I need to give you an instruction. If you feel the need to take breaks, please make an indication and an accommodation will be made. We begin now with the questions from the prosecution. They're to your left. Please give them your attention. Madam Prosecutor.
Good morning, witness. My name is Vega Iodice, and today I will be asking you questions on behalf of the SPO. As explained during our last meeting, rather than asking you questions about every relevant issue you may have information about, it may be possible to admit your statement containing such information into evidence. There are a number of procedural steps to follow in order to do so. Before turning to these, I will first establish your identity. Could you please tell us what your name is?
Nezir Chochai.
And what is your date of birth?
27 September 1970.
Country of nationality?
I'm a citizen of Kosovo.
Education?
I hold a scientific master in education sciences.
Sir, you have given a statement to the SPO in the past, and you were allowed to review it in preparation of testimony. Today, we will seek to tender your statement into evidence. Could the court officer please bring up 091269 TRET Part 1, Red 3, and its Albanian translation?
Counselor, was it Red 2?
Red 3.
Red 3?
Sorry, just a clarification, it was part 3.
Part 1.
Part 1, apologies.
And, sir, while we bring the document up, do you recall being interviewed by the SPO in 2021?
Yes.
And do you remember reading this statement in your language last week?
Yes.
All that you had the opportunity to make corrections and clarifications to your statement.
Yes.
Do you recall that those corrections were written down in a note and read back to you?
Yes.
Do you confirm what was read back to you in that note reflects your changes fully and accurately?
Yes.
We include all of the corrections and clarifications that you made last week. Is the information in your statement accurate and truthful to the best of your knowledge and belief?
Yes.
If you were asked the same questions today about the same events, would your answers be the same?
Yes.
Fill the Rule 154 criterion in accordance with Decision F02720, paragraph 96. We would like to tender 091269 TRET, Part 1, Red 3, Part 2, Red 2, Part 3, Red 2, Part 4, Red 3, Part 5, Red 3, and the Albanian translations.
Any objection?
No objection, Your Honor.
No objection.
No objection is heard. 091269 TRET, Part 1 through Part 5, as enumerated, are admitted.
Thank you, Your Honor. The first part of the statement, English and Albanian, will receive exhibit number P01834.1. Part 2, English and Albanian, will receive exhibit number P01834.2. Part 3 will receive exhibit number P01834.3. Part 4 will become exhibit P01834.4. And finally, the last part, Part 5, will receive exhibit number P01834.5.
Thank you, Madam Court Officer. Go ahead.
We would like to tender also preparation note 1, which is ERN 123591 to 123603.
Any objection to the note?
No objection, Your Honor.
No, Your Honor.
None is heard. 123591 to 123603 is admitted.
Preparation Note 1 will receive exhibit number P01835. Classification is confidential, as well as all parts of the statement. They're also classified as confidential. Thank you.
Yes, Your Honor. And we would like also to tender the two associated exhibits. These are ERN 091265 to 091268 and the English translation, and SITF 00249032 to SITF 00249032.
Any objection to the two associated exhibits?
No, Your Honor.
No, Your Honor.
None is heard. The two associated exhibits as enumerated are admitted.
Thank you, Your Honor. The first associated exhibit 091265 to 091268, Albanian and English, will receive exhibit number P01836. Classification is confidential. And second associated exhibit with the ERN SITF 00249032 to SITF 00249032, Albanian and English, will receive exhibit number P01837. Classification is confidential. Thank you.
Thank you. You may proceed.
Your Honor, with your leave, I'd like to read a short summary of the witness evidence.
Leave is granted. Go ahead.
W4679 is a Kosovar Albanian who joined the KLA around March-April 1998. During his time with the KLA, he assisted with the organization of the KLA in his area and later joined the Maastricht Operational Zone. W4679 provides evidence concerning the KLA structure and organization, including of the Maastricht Operational Zone, his interactions with KLA General Staff members, and what he witnessed and observed at the former MOOC building in Prizren in June 1999.
Thank you.
Witness, I now have a few questions for you. First, I would like you to focus on the KLA locations in Prizren in June 1999. Could the court officer please bring up ERN 058255, and this can be broadcasted. Mr. Chochai, do you recognize this building?
Po. Yes.
What building is it?
Që është ndërtesa? This is the dormitory building in prison.
Did this location in June 1999?
Po. Yes.
Who was based there?
Ka qenë komanda e zonës. The command of the Maastricht zone.
Your Honors, I would like to tender this photo into evidence.
Objection?
No objections, Your Honor.
None. RN 058255 is admitted.
The document will receive exhibit number P01838, and in legal workflow is currently classified as confidential.
It can be public.
Reclassified as public.
Thank you.
Thank you. And could we now move to page, to ERN 058257, 058258, and go to page 058258. Mr. Chochai, do you recognize this building?
Po,
Yes.
duhet të jetë e njëjta ndër
It should be the same building, student dormitory. But as we can see now, this picture was taken after renovation works.
Thank you. And is this the same building as before where the zone command of the Pastric zone was based?
Mendoj se po.
I think so.
Your Honor, I would like to tender this page into evidence.
Any objection?
No objection.
No objection is heard. ERN 058257 to 058258. And you just want the one page, correct?
Yes.
That page 058258 is admitted.
That one page will receive exhibit number P01839. Classification is confidential.
Thank you.
It can,
Reclassify it as public, please.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Mr. Chochai, to your knowledge, which other buildings in Prizren were used by the KLA in June 1999 after the Kumanovo Agreement?
Pas kësaj ka qenë edhe shtëpia
There was also the army house in prison. And the deaf and mute school in prison.
Which unit was based in the Army House?
në shtëpinë e armatës. Nuk di saktësisht një kohë ka
I do not know for how long or when exactly, but the army house was used as a zone command for a while, and then some soldiers were stationed there, soldiers who were not residents of the prison area.
So that we're clear in terms of what building we're talking about, is the Army House currently used as municipality building?
po përdoret.
Yes, it is used.
For mute and deaf, who was based there?
Ka qenë celia e brigadës një
The command of Brigade 125 was stationed there.
And do you know who Samedin Jezairi is?
po.
Yes,
Member of the KLA.
Ka qenë
he was.
Which brigade?
125.
Brigade 125.
Thank you. Do you know whether there were any KLA soldiers based in the area of Prizren called Tusus?
Nga ajo lagjet me siguri ka pas
There were certainly KLA soldiers coming from that neighborhood.
Coming from or based there? Do you know if there were any KLA soldier in that area? Present in that area?
vinin nga ajo zonë,
They came from that area. There most probably were as well, but people who wore KLA uniforms came literally from every neighborhood.
Thank you. If I could now show a video, could we have P01193? And there's no need to have an interpretation. If we can start the video and stop at 002. Mr. Chochai, do you recognize the building in the background?
po,
Yes.
në pjesën e djathtë është ndërtesë
On the right-hand side, we see the prison court building.
And on the left-hand side?
Kjo ka qenë ndërtesë
This was a building where ID documents were issued during the Serb regime.
Can we now continue and stop towards 0019? Have you ever seen this person before?
duhet ta kem parë.
I must have seen him.
Do you know whether he was a member of the KLA?
Po,
Yes.
ka qenë.
Yes, he was.
A member of?
I zonës Pashtrikut.
Partially zone.
Tell of which unit was he part of?
Ka qenë pjesë e policisë ushtarake.
He was a member of the military police.
And if we can stop here, do you recognize the building in the background?
Po,
Yes.
ka qenë objekti i policisë.
This was the police building. Serb police building.
E vërtet.
Correct. Correct.
Now we can play the rest of the video. Sir, I would like to now move to a different topic. Were you ever asked to join SHIC?
Po.
Yes.
Zoti Ferhat Shala.
Mr. Ferhat Shala.
Why was he looking for you to join SHIC?
Nuk e di.
I don't know.
Why was he looking for people to join SHIC, do you know? Rather than you in particular.
Nuk e di.
I don't know.
Remember discussing this topic with me last week.
Po.
Yes.
Remember that what you said about this topic to me last week regarding why Mr. Shala was asking for people to join SHIC.
Ai ashtu ai ka ardhur ka bisedu me mua.
He came and spoke to me. He said we are interested in forming the organization called SHIC, and we want to have people in.
And did he tell you who had given him the task to do that?
Po mendoj që
I think he received, he said, I have this task from the director, meaning to talk to you, to select people.
And who was the director?
po me siguri atë kohë ka qenë
Most probably at the time it was Mr. Kadir Veseli.
And before that time, to your knowledge, was Ferhat Shala a KLA member?
po ka
Yes, he was.
It's not clear to me whether you've asked the witness when that request to Ferhat Shala was made. That would help if you could.
Thank you, Your Honor, and apologies, I'll clarify. Before we move on to Ferhat Shala's role in the KLA, when did he come to you and ask you whether you were interested in joining SHIC? Do you know more or less?
po mendoj ka qenë dikon vit
I think it was sometime in 2001.
I wasn't very clear, Monsieur Dice. I was asking about the time when he thinks a director of SHIC asked Ferhat Shala to help establish the structure. Thank you.
Are you able to answer that question? Do you know when is that the director of SHIC asked Ferhat Shala to build that structure within SHIC?
Ferhati më ka thënë në vitin
Farah told me this in 2001. I do not know any further.
You mentioned that, to your knowledge, Ferhat Shala was a KLA member. In which zone was he operating?
e di që ka qenë në zonë
I know that he was in the Danica operative zone.
Nickname.
me sa di
To my knowledge, he went by the pseudonym Plumbi.
No further questions, Your Honor.
We'll take a 10-minute break. Witness, you can step out of the room with the court usher. We're adjourned for 10 minutes.
All rise. All rise.
Be seated. Is it possible, Madam Prosecutor, for the preparation notes that we discussed earlier for the witness Monday be available by Thursday?
Your Honor, I'll need to consult and get back to you.
Go ahead.
I will need to consult and get back to you.
Now, Ms. Cavicoli, still no questions?
No, not at the moment.
Still nothing for now, Your Honor.
Mr. Ellis,
Nothing for now, Your Honor.
no questions for this witness?
Not at this time. I would seek to reserve a couple of minutes in case any questions are needed at the end of the primary cross-examination, but nothing at this time.
All right.
And Your Honor, I can indicate.
Here's what we'll do for you, and I understand your request. We will break now. We will come back at 1:30 and start your cross-examination at 1:30. Should give you a little time to go through those prep notes and get the questions you want. That's all.
I'm grateful for that.
And we would expect this witness to be finished today, so bear that in mind as well.
Yes.
And also, Mr. Ellis, for you, since you may have some backup questions, and please leave a little room because I know the judges may have some questions too.
Yes. I'm grateful for that indication, Your Honors.
All right. All right.
And Your Honor, to be clear, we're not saying no questions whatsoever. It's just in case if anything pops up, and we reserve some time. Thank you.
Understood. But we would like to finish with this witness today, and I want everyone to understand that. So we will break at this time. We'll be back here at 1:30. Thank you for the morning so far. We're adjourned until 1:30.
All rise. All rise.
Be seated. Before we begin the cross-examination of W04679, we have two oral orders to issue. The panel recalls that on 11 November 2024, in filing F02706, the defense jointly requested leave to appeal the panel's third oral order of 31 October 2024, an oral order admitting into evidence V00008. Having heard the submissions of the parties and participants, the panel finds that no good cause has been demonstrated for the late filing of F02706. The panel therefore finds that F02706 was filed outside the time limit stipulated in Rule 77.1 and therefore denies F2706 for F02706 for being out of time. This concludes the panel's first oral order. The panel will now issue an oral order regarding the release of presentation cues to duty counsel. In filing F02727, the SPO requested that the panel imposes 3 safeguards on duty counsel's access to presentation cues. First, that duty counsel be provided access to presentation cues no earlier than the start of their client's testimony. Second, that other than the witness's prior testimony, Second, that other than the witness's prior statements and testimony, duty counsel be instructed not to review any documents in a presentation cue with the witness. And third, that parties and participants should be notified of and provided the opportunity to make submissions on any request by duty counsel to vary these safeguards. The panel heard submissions in response and reply this morning as reflected in today's provisional transcript, page 3, line 12, page 5, line 92, page 5, line 19. The defense opposed the request on 2 grounds. First, the defense submits that there is efficiency in allowing duty counsel to see the material in the presentation cue in advance of the witness's testimony in order for duty counsel to be in a position to properly advise their client. Second, to the SPO's concern regarding the sensitivity and confidentiality of the material in the presentation cue. The defense argues that duty counsel are bound by, inter alia, the Code of Professional Conduct of Counsel. The SPO replied that early release of presentation cue material to duty counsel will not advance efficiency as issues of self-incrimination, if they arise, will not arise from the material itself, but rather from the questioning. Having heard the submissions from the parties and the participants, the panel is of the view that the duty counsel should, in principle, have access to all material in the prosecution's presentation cue at least 24 hours in advance of the anticipated start of testimony of their client. The panel considers that this will enable duty counsel to review the material and to be in a position to provide informed and effective advice to their client with regard to self-incrimination matters. This should also serve to prevent undue delays during the proceedings. The panel emphasizes that duty counsel shall not in any way discuss or disclose the content of any material received for the purpose of representing their client with any third person or member of the public. The panel also emphasizes that duty counsel shall not in any way prepare or coach the witness on the substance of his or her forthcoming testimony on the basis of the material received. Duty counsel has the limited and specific role of advising the witness on self-incrimination matters that may arise during testimony. The panel orders the registry to inform duty counsel accordingly. In the event that the SPO has specific reasons for any item contained on its cue not to be shared with duty counsel in advance of the witness's testimony, the SPO shall seize the panel with a reasoned request. In the event that duty counsel requests a variation of the above conditions, the panel will decide on a case-by-case basis after having heard the views of the parties and participants. This concludes the panel's second oral order. We now continue with the cross-examination by the defense, beginning with the Vaseli defense, then followed by the Thaçi defense, Salimi defense, and the Krasniqi defense. Please bring the witness in.
Your Honor, if I may.
Just a second. Let's go ahead.
With regards to the panel's request in relation to the preparation note of WO3873, we, at the moment we anticipate we'll be in a position to provide those notes by Thursday, and we'll update you should that not be possible.
Thank you very much. All right, witness, we begin now with cross-examination questions from the defense lawyers. We begin first with Mr. Vesely's defense team. Please give them your attention. They're on your immediate right.
Thank you, Your Honours. Good afternoon, Mr. Chochai. My name is Rodney Dixon. I act for Mr. Kadri Vasili. I'm going to ask you some questions first. I want to go back, if I may, Mr. Chochai, to the beginning of the conflict in March 1998. At that time, you were based in your village, which is right on the border with Albania in the southwest of Kosovo, called Gjojang. Is that right?
That's right.
You were a teacher before that?
Po, isha pedagog shkolle.
Yes, I was the pedagogist of the school.
In March 1998, you were one of the first, is this right, in your village to start organizing village defenses in light of a number of massacres that had taken place in other parts of Kosovo, massacres committed by Serb forces against Kosovo Albanians. Is that right?
E vërtet. Por
That's right, but I was not the first. I'd rather say I was amongst the first ones.
You volunteered to assist with others, as you say, to protect your village in March 1998. Is that right?
në fakt nuk ka pas konflikte.
In fact, there was no direct conflict or clashes in my village. However, judging from the developments in other villages and other parts of Kosovo, we anticipated that we would face similar situations as they did.
Yes, and your village was one village amongst many on the border in a region known as the Has region, or Has region. Is that right?
Po, ne jemi në zonën në
Yes, we are in the Has region, and Has is part of Prizren municipality, Gjakova municipality, and on the border with the Republic of Albania.
And can I just clarify in terms of the formation that you had at that time? I'm looking now at March and onwards into April and May. There was a loose structure which was headed up by Harish Muhadri. Is that right? He was regarded as a coordinator in your area.
po, koordinator.
Yes, as regional commander Hairush Muhadri, not the name that was mentioned by the interpreter. His name is Hairush Muhadri. This is his name.
My pronunciation, I apologize for that. So Harish Muhadri was the coordinator in your region. And in your village itself, who was the person who was in charge there?
Në fshatin tim
In my village, Zenun Chochai was the person in charge. Now he is a martyr. Interpreter's correction, line 23 should read regional coordinator.
Thank you. And Mr. Zenon Chochai, he was Mr. Muhadri's maternal uncle, is that right?
ishte doja I Zotit Herush.
He was Hairushi's maternal uncle.
And it's right, isn't it, that a lot of the organization at the time took place along family lines, family and friends who knew each other well, coming together to look to defend their villages.
E vërtet.
That's correct.
There was at that time, and I'm talking about March, April, May, that period, there was no central organization amongst your villages. You worked in a fairly isolated fashion, village by village.
Po.
Yes. As far as the village is concerned, yes.
In fact, it was very difficult to get from one village to the other at that time for safety reasons.
Exakt.
That's correct.
And it's right, at this time, there was no general staff of the KLA giving instructions to villages and ordering people in any way whatsoever.
Është e vërtet.
That's true. It was not possible for the general staff to give instructions for each and every village.
Never received any instructions during this time from the general staff or anyone in the general staff. That's right, isn't it?
E vërtet. Nuk kemi.
That's true. We did not have instructions. I didn't know, or rather, we didn't know that the general staff existed at the time.
Yes. Your tasks were mainly just focused on defense and joining the front lines if you needed to do that. Is that right?
E vërtet.
That's right.
And in respect of the training that you had, there was no specific military training at that time. You did the best you could with the weapons that you were able to muster. Is that right?
Nuk kemi pas përgatitje të
We did not have adequate or sufficient military training.
Many people did join into your village defenses, mainly because they were outraged at what had happened with the massacres in Kosovo. Is that correct?
Exakt.
That's correct.
But they didn't have any particular military training when they had to take up their duties. Would that be a fair assessment?
E drejtë, sakt.
Yes, correct.
Now I want to move on from that time to the summer of 1998. There were, in this time, a number of Serb offences in your area along the border with Albania and in the surrounding areas. Do you recall that?
Po, ka pasur.
Yes, there were offensives.
Border area where you were was obviously an important one, was it not? Because that was a place where you were able to get in weapons from Albania. Is that right?
E vërtet.
That's right.
Now, you've said in your testimony to the SBO, and this is in part 1, page 16 onwards, that during this time with Mr. Hudrai and others, there were some ups and downs in the organization. You recall giving that evidence?
Could the witness please be shown the relevant portion?
Your Honor, I don't think there's any need to do that. I've given the reference. It's just one line, ups and downs. I want to ask him what he
Doesn't need
meant.
to be shown. Go ahead with your question.
Thank you, Your Honours.
Averteter, ja.
It is true.
Thank you. You do recall that. I wanted to ask, when you said there were ups and downs in the organisation, what were you referring to there?
Pas çdo ofensiv,
Well, after each offensive, the level of motivation amongst persons differed depending on their family circumstances. Some withdrew from the organization. This is what I meant.
Thank you. It's true, is it not, that Mr. Muhdrahi, who we referred to, Mr. Muhdrahi, who we referred to, he was one of the persons who withdrew from the organization after Serb offences in September 1998.
e
That's correct.
So you were without a coordinator and without a structure at that time. This is after the Serb offences in September 1998. Is that right?
Në për mënyrë ka pas zbej.
In a way, there was a sort of
Të tjerë,
weakening of the structure. However, there were other persons who continued the activity. I do not know specifically for Mr. Muhadri what he did afterwards, what his work involved afterwards.
So who were the persons who stepped in then in your region, the Haas region, when he left?
ka qenë Qazim Muhadri.
Kazim Muhadri,
Gasper Karaci,
Gasper Karaci, and others.
And it's right, isn't it, moving forward now in time, so after the Serb offensives in September 1998, that you decided to get in contact with Commander Drini of the Pastrict subzone in order to look to reorganize yourselves.
Është e vërtet.
This is true.
You traveled to see Commander Drini when he returned from Albania in mid-December 1998. Do you recall that? You traveled to see him.
Po, më kujto.
I do, yes.
What was the purpose of that meeting in mid-December 1998?
Qëllimi ka
Could
qenë
we have a foundation for the mid-December?
Well, I've asked the witness if he recalls, and he said he does.
Go ahead, overruled.
e di që kemi shku të atakojmë
I know that we went to meet somebody from the zone command because we strived for a better organization and functioning of the regional staff 1000 Thaçi, and our aim was to go from the staff to the brigade.
Yes. And just to clarify, at that time, there was no involvement of the KLA general staff in any of these discussions or the processes that you were going through. Is that right?
nuk di që ka pas
There was no involvement of the general staff, or I don't know of any involvement of the general staff in this process.
Now, it's correct, it was at this time in December, mid-December is when we are focused on, that Commander Drini asked you to join the intelligence service at the zone level. Do you recall that?
Kjo është e vërtet.
This is true, but initially he requested that I dealt with logistics simply because I was from the Has region and had the opportunity to go and ask for financial support from people from Haas who were working abroad. This was the initial request of Commander Drini addressed to me.
What happened? Did you take up that role?
Jo, nuk e kam marrë për.
No, I didn't take up that role.
He suggested other roles to you as well, taking on logistics. Is that right?
Po, kështu ka qenë.
Yes, that's right. This was his initial request.
And then you eventually settled on taking up a position in the intelligence sector of the zone. Is that how it happened?
Po, kështu ka ndodhur me kërkesë.
This is how it happened. On the request of Commander Drini, he proposed or suggested that it would be good if I worked in that sector, and that's why I accepted.
Why he thought it would be good for you to work in that sector?
Tash arsyet nuk e di të drejt për.
Now, I do not know the direct reasons. However, since we communicated and knew each other through a family member, I guess it was because of the trust he had in me. However, I do not know the specific reasons why he wanted me to work in this sector.
So is it right that a friend of yours who you knew a family member of his, and that was the basis upon which he decided to ask you to serve in this role? Is that how you remember it?
Shoku im e njihte komandant Drini.
My friend knew Commander Drini directly. He was a family of his, and this is why I think this was the reason for this proposal.
For clarifying that. When you were appointed into this position, you didn't get any formal document or notification in writing, did you? It all happened orally.
Jo, nuk kam pas emrin me shkrim.
I did not have any appointment in a written form. It all happened only orally.
And you weren't appointed by anybody other than Commander Drini. You weren't appointed by anyone in the general staff, were you?
Jo, yes.
No, I wasn't.
Can you assist us with who else in the zone was dealing with intelligence at that time when you were appointed?
Kur jam caktuar unë,
When I was appointed, I did not see anyone or did not have any appointment to any specific position like member of the staff or driver or so forth. Sometime afterwards, Halil Chadraku came, and a person with the last name Kabashi, and after April, a person with the name that the interpreter did not get.
perhaps the third person, I think it is, that you mentioned.
Pekka Gashi.
Pekka Gashi.
Second person. So there were two other persons, Mr. Kadraku that you've mentioned, and is it a Mrs. Gashi? Is that right? They were the other two people in the intelligence sector after you'd been appointed, as you explained.
Po, fillimisht zonja
Yes, Miss Gashi, she is a female. Miss Pekka Gashi. I apologize, I do not know her full name. We always refer to her with Pekka. She is a woman, not a man.
Yes, and it's right that Mr. Kadraku was the head of the intelligence sector at the zone level, and she was an assistant or administrator.
vërtet.
That's right.
And you took up your role with them from January 1999, is that right?
Faktikisht I bjen që unë kam qenë më herët.
Well, in fact, I joined earlier, but I did not have any official appointment to the person in charge or chief within the zone.
So you started, is it not right, working for Mr. Kadraku from January of 1999?
Besoj se ka qenë janar kur ka.
I believe it was January when Mr. Chadraku arrived, but I do not know exactly.
And it's correct, isn't it, that from your knowledge, before that date, before January 1999, there was no intelligence structure in the Maastricht subzone?
Në nivel të zonës operative.
At the level of operational zone, I'm not aware that there was one.
You were really from January 1999 building from scratch at the operational zone level, the intelligence structure. Is that right?
Mendoj që po.
I think yes.
Now, at that time, we're talking about January 1999, you had very limited resources at your disposal to do intelligence work. Would that be an accurate assessment?
Është vlerësimi I saktë.
It would.
You didn't have any regulations on how to conduct intelligence operations.
Jo, nuk kemi pas rregull.
We didn't have regulations.
You've said already you were a teacher. You had no specific training in how to undertake intelligence work. Is that right?
Shumë e vërtetë.
That's correct.
Your main responsibility at that time and then in the months going forward was to gather as much information as you could about Serb positions, their forces, and where they might attack. Is that how it happened at that time?
Po.
Yes.
And when you got that information, would you be passing it on to your superior, Mr. Kadraku?
Po, nëse ishte zoti që
Yes, if Mr. Chadrako was there. Otherwise, it followed the hierarchy, the chief of staff, chief of zone, and then the deputy commander and the zone commander. This was the line we followed to report information.
Yes. So if you couldn't report to Mr. Kadraku, who would you report information to that you had gathered?
Mostly we focused the zone commander, if he was available. If not, we followed the hierarchy. Deputy commander, chief of staff, chief of the operational matters. This is how they were referred to. These were the people in charge of making the plans, determining the specifics of Serbian forces, movements, and so on and so forth.
And how did you convey that information? In writing, orally, both?
Mostly orally, but also in writing. We were asked to write down specific information as to the movements, so that the operational sector of the zone command had this relevant, precise information.
By hand?
Yes.
What about communications? How could you communicate with one another? Was it being done face-to-face, by radio?
Both ways. Mostly through radio. Those who were not too distant were in the same territory. This could be done in person. Also, information gathered on the ground could also be reported to commanders in the nearby territory in person.
And you were getting this information about Serb positions from those on the ground in the battalions, those who were fighting on the front line, is that right?
The information could come from many persons, but in particular from tactical operational units on the ground. So people who were in charge of surveilling the Serb positions, movements of their forces or weaponry. This does not mean that it had to be a battalion commander. It could be a member or a leader of a unit or a platoon.
And at this time, Mr. Chocha, you were also fighting on the front line yourself. That was taking up, was it not, a substantial part of your daily life?
Yes. My primary task was to be a soldier, and as a matter of fact, everybody was a soldier, including the zone commander. So during the offensives, the fightings, from 5 in the morning, which was the usual time the Serbs would launch an attack, we would be on the front line. So my primary task was that of a soldier.
And gathering intelligence was really a supplementary task, wasn't it?
That's correct.
Now, you've described for us how you gathered information, how you made reports of it. It's correct that you never ever provided any of those reports directly to the General Staff of the KLA. That's right, isn't it?
I did not have any opportunity to convey this information to the General Staff, nor was it my task or duty to do that.
Mr. Kadraku wasn't passing information directly, as far as you know, to the General Staff, was he?
he did not have the opportunity either to convey this directly. This would have required a person to travel on foot for several kilometers through mountainous areas and through areas where Serb forces were there to do that. So this was virtually impossible. Besides, the general staff was not particularly interested to know about small Serb forces' presence or movements.
So as far as you know, none of these reports were passed on directly by you or others in the intelligence group to the general staff. That's right, isn't it?
Evertid.
That's right.
So it's correct then that that information that you gathered was not passed directly by you to Mr. Kadri Vaseli in the general staff, was it?
On the one, zotin Kadri Veseli contact.
I met with Mr. Kadri Veseli on 3 occasions, but we never discussed these matters or issues. I do not know who met with him and when would that person have had the need to meet with him. I personally didn't.
Only for the first time at the end of March 1999. Is that right?
Pokačen.
Correct. I do not recall the exact date, but it was after the beginning of the shelling from Serbian forces in NATO bombing in March. So this was during this time period.
Clarify that that's after the start of the NATO bombing was the first time that you met with him or had any contact with him?
Yes.
After
After the 24th of March. The NATO led force started bombing the Serb positions on the 24th of March.
Thank you. I wanted to ask you about the role of the intelligence sector in identifying collaborators. It's correct, is it not, that you never had a case concerning a collaborator that you had to deal with in your role in the subzone?
That is correct.
You assumed, is it not right, that this was something that, in theory, intelligence would look at, but in practice, you never ever were involved in gathering any information about persons who might have been giving information to the enemy.
That's correct.
And you were never told by your boss, Mr. Kadraku, to go out and collect information on so-called collaborators. Is that right?
That's right. He never told me so.
And nor did Commander Drini tell you to do that. That's right?
Correct. He never asked me to do that.
What about working with the military police in your zone to collect information about crimes that were being committed? Was that something that you ever took up?
Never.
Did you work with the military police in any way during your time in the intelligence sector?
No.
Did they assist in transporting you anywhere or helping you fulfill your functions in any way?
No.
I want to call up one exhibit for you to have a look at, please, Mr. Kochai, and that's P500 in English and Albanian. Yes, you'll see on the left-hand side there the Albanian version of this document, which is headed Statement. You were shown this by the SPO, you may recall.
Po.
Yes.
You had never seen this document before it was shown to you, is that right? Shown to you by the SPO.
E vërtet.
That's right.
The second page to the end, I just wanted another page over, please, on the English. You'll see there at the end it's a document signed by your boss, Mr. Kadraku. You see that?
Po.
Yes.
Chair?
Nuk e di, nuk jam.
I don't know, I'm not sure if that is the signature of Mr. Chadraku.
You say you haven't seen this document before, but was this issue that Mr. Kadrako is raising here, or the issues raised, ever discussed with you at the time? Do you recall?
Nuk e kujtoj.
I do not recall it.
Well, let's put it this way. Do you remember Commander Remy ever having any issues with, sorry, Commander Drini, apologize for that, Commander Drini, ever having any issues with your sector, the intelligence sector in your zone, any disputes?
Nuk besoj të ketë.
I don't believe there was any disagreement or problem in our sector.
And you got on well with Commander Drini, is that right, from your dealings with him?
Konsideroj që po.
I think so.
Sorry, I didn't hear your answer. I think so. Thank you.
Konsideroj që po.
I think so.
And can I just draw your attention to, on the left-hand side of the document, there's a 1, 2, 3 numbers there of places where it says done in triplicate, and then it's got these 3 listed below it. Do you see that part of the document?
Po. Po,
yes.
General staff, and then number 3 under that, Schick at the general staff. From your recollection at the time, was there any Schick at the general staff?
Nuk besoj që të ketë.
I don't believe there was a Schick at that time. There was the ZKZ, but not Schick.
So when you refer to Schick, do you mean the organization that you joined much later in 2001, which was the Civilian National Intelligence?
Po besoj që po.
Yes, I think so, because there was no sheikh at the time. At least I was not aware of of the existence of any sheikh at that time, and it is not possible for a sheikh to have existed at that time.
Is it right that the first time that sheikh, which is the civilian national intelligence, came into existence was after the date of this statement, which was in April of 1999?
Nëse ka mundësi edhe një herë se me
Could you please repeat the question?
Establish some dates here as far as you can recollect. Is it right that SHIC, the civilian national intelligence, came into existence after the date of this document, this statement, and that was in April 1999?
unë nuk e di që ka
I am not aware that there was a sheikh at that time. I don't know when it was established. There was no functioning sheikh. We were ZKZ, intelligence, military intelligence and counterintelligence.
Then in March of 1999, which is when the statement is dated, there was no sheikh in existence then. Is that right?
Objection, asked and answered.
I just want to clarify the dates because there was some confusion in the answer.
This for the last time, yes. Go ahead, you may answer.
Nuk jam I sigurt, nuk di.
I am not sure. I do not know exactly. I wouldn't know what to say.
Well, perhaps, if I may, I'll call up another document, which is 1D70, witness for you to have a look at, to see if this is a document you have seen before or know of the circumstances. This is a communique you'll see on the left-hand side there in Albanian from the government of Kosovo. This is the provisional government, and it's dated 2 April 1999. It's a public communique. Do you recall seeing this document at any time?
Këtë dokument e kam parë
I saw this document in the media after the war, not during the war.
And were you aware that in April of 1999, the provisional government had been appointed with a minister and Ministry of Kosovo Intelligence Service? Were you aware that that had happened in that time, April 1999?
Do më thonë në lajm
We had our KLA radio where I heard this, but I did not see the actual document.
So you remember hearing that in April 1999?
Po.
Correct.
So I just want to ask you about some evidence that you gave in chief. This is my final topic, about a Mr. Ferret Shala. You recall being asked by the SPO about this morning.
Po.
Yes. The interpreter is not pronouncing the name correctly. It's Ferhat Shala.
Once again, that might have been my pronunciation problem. Ferhat Shala. You were asked about him in relation to you joining SHIC. This is the national intelligence body in 2001. Do you remember that?
Paul.
Yes.
Do you recall, sir, that you joining SHIC was a matter that was raised with you by a good friend of yours, Mr. Skender Saluka, who you'd gone to school with and university with? Do you remember that?
Po unë
Skender Salauka is a friend of mine. However, we did not discuss the matter of joining SHIC. I had a direct conversation about my joining with Mr. Ferhat Shala.
It's a matter that you discussed with your friend. Do you recall, Mr. Skender Saluka?
nuk e di nëse ke
I do not know if we discussed this with him. I do not recall it.
Very well. And when you had the discussion with Mr. Shala, this was in 2001, did you express an immediate interest in wanting to join SHIC at that time?
Jo, nuk kam shpreh.
No, I did not express an immediate interest or readiness, but following several meetings, I agreed.
You took some time to decide whether you were going to join up, is that right?
Po kisha probleme.
I had health-related family problems, so my priority was my family and then other commitments.
And it's right that you did not know if Mr. Shala had been involved in the intelligence sector during the war.
Nuk e kam ditë, nuk e di.
I did not know. I don't know.
Dealings with him in your role as intelligence during the war, had you?
Jo, nuk kam.
No, I hadn't.
Never ever got any orders or instructions from him during the war.
Shumë e drejtë.
That's correct.
And it's right, isn't it, that Mr. Vasily, as far as you know, did not have any deputies working for him during the war?
Nuk e di që ka pas.
I do not know that he had any. I never heard of any.
So you never heard of anyone, no one ever talked about him having a deputy as far as you can recall?
Esakt.
Correct.
Churchai, those are my questions. Thank you, Your Honours.
Thank you, Ms. Tepicoli. Any questions?
Thank you.
No questions, Your Honour.
Mr. Ellis?
No, thank you, Your Honour. That's covered my questions.
We'll take a 15-minute break before we move on. Witness will be excused from the room for 15 minutes. We will endeavor to finish after the break. So thank you, Mr. Dixon, for getting through this in record time. We will take a 15-minute break now and then be back in the courtroom, so we're adjourned for 15 minutes.
All rise. All rise.
Be seated, please. Before bringing the witness in, Judge, we need to go, you want private session?
No, I don't.
Okay. Barta had a question for the Saley defense.
That's right. Thank you very much, Judge Smith. I have a question for you, Mr. Dixon.
Yes.
In relation to one of the issues you just addressed in your cross-examination of Mr. Chochai and was also addressed by your colleagues before, the use of the terms "chic" in the letter of 14 March 1999 and the difference between the terms "chic" and ZKZ seem to be of importance to you, and would like to ask you on behalf of the panel what your case is in this regard. Are you saying that the letter of 14 March 1999 was not written or signed by the people who are apparently the authors of the letter, Mr. Halitya and Mr. Chadraku, or that it was fake because there was no chick in March 1999?
Your Honour, that is the subject of the next witness who is coming. So if I may not preempt where we're going to go there, because that witness will be the person who will be asked directly about the document. I was simply with this witness looking to explore what his understanding was at the time, and then looking at the other related documents from April. So I'm not trying to get around answering the question. I just don't want to go into it until we've heard what the prosecution say about this document with the next witness, and then I'll ask my questions and readily address these issues, because it is an important issue in the case, obviously.
I understand. So in other words, you will enlighten us next week?
Yes, indeed.
The next witness.
As it progresses step by step, certainly do so.
That should suffice. Thank you.
Thank you.
Please bring the witness in. Sorry, any redirect?
No, Your Honor.
Just a second. It's already my turn.
You can start with Jay.
No, it's fine. Good afternoon, Mr. Chochai. The panel has a few more questions for you, which we believe are necessary to better understand your evidence. And my first question is a general one. Could you please describe the situation in Prizren and the surrounding area in the summer of 1999, after the Serbian forces had left?
Well, this is a general question, and the situation was suitable to the time. A country that had just been liberated, it was impossible to have a good organization. Soldiers had problems, family problems, existential problems. We tried more or less to go to buildings where we were supposed to carry our duties as soldiers. I do not know what to add more than that I just said. It was a situation of a country that just had come out of a war.
How was the security situation? Were there still fights, combat ongoing, or in June 1999?
Following the 12th of June, there was no conflict because the Serb forces left Kosovo up until 18th June, but in Prizren proper, from 13th or 14th of June, there was no longer a Serb forces presence. We then have the arrival of KFOR forces, and the executive powers were taken over more or less in their entirety by the German KFOR, and I'm speaking about the Prizren area.
Mr. Čočaj, we heard from witnesses who were involved in the takeover of prison as KFOR or German KFOR soldiers that the KLA had set up checkpoints or roadblocks. Is that correct?
I don't think this is correct.
So you haven't seen any checkpoints or roadblocks set up by the KLA?
No, never.
Didn't have to pass a roadblock, a checkpoint, for example, when you drove to the former MUB building?
No, never.
Thank you. And we also heard from one witness, and this is also the prosecution's case, that the KLA tried to establish control at border crossings. Have you heard of that, or have you seen anything like that?
This was impossible.
To give you more details about that, one witness told us, for the record, this is at page 15696 of the transcript, that he saw the first KLA checkpoints at the Morina border crossing to Albania on 13 and 14 June 1999, where the KLA basically, as the witness said, took over the border crossing immediately after the withdrawal of the Serbian forces. So you cannot confirm this?
The German KFOR settled on the 12th of June in Morina border crossing and did not allow the Albanian flag to fly. And based on the agreement, it was the German KFOR to provide security. So there was no other force that would be able to erect checkpoints or roadblocks in border areas, especially in areas under German KFOR. In other words, the German KFOR was very strict. You've seen probably in the media that they engaged in confrontation with the Serb forces that opposed to the arrival of German KFOR.
So you cannot help us, or you cannot explain to us what the reasons, assuming that there were such checkpoints, and as I said before, the witness was, in fact, a German KFOR soldier, you cannot explain to us what the reasons for these checkpoints were, assuming that there were checkpoints established or set up by the KLA.
My chart.
To be more clear, I did not see or hear that following the liberation of Kosovo, there were KLA roadblocks, particularly when it was under the competence of the German KFOR, as I mentioned. There were two Serbian soldiers who had been killed for refusing to carry out an order issued by German KFOR, and this was in the media.
Thank you. Now I would like to talk about the events at the former MUP building in mid-June 1999. And Madam Court Officer, can we please go into private session for the protection of witnesses?
Your Honors, we are now in public session.
Thank you, and thank you to the prosecutor for reminding me. Now, witness Ferhat Şala has suggested that Kadri Veseli asked him to help set up this intelligence and counterintelligence structure in the autumn of 1998. Now, do you have any reason to dispute such a suggestion?
No. You mentioned autumn 98. However, what I stated is 2001, meaning the meeting with Ferhat Şala occurred after the war in 2001.
To the meeting in a moment, but Mr. Ferhat Şala also said that he started performing this task of assisting Mr. Veseli setting up an intelligence and counterintelligence structure in January of 1999. Again, do you have any reason to dispute that claim?
I do not know what Mr. Ferhat Şala stated. Referring to January 99, I wouldn't know. He may know. I am talking about the meeting I had with Mr. Şala after the war in 2001. I do not know what his powers were with respect to the ZKZ, which was called as such in January 99. So this had nothing to do with SHIK. I do not know how he presented or how he stated this.
Meeting in 2001 with Ferhat Şala. Can you tell us what position or role he was holding at the time?
He did not share this information, and I had no means to know his role.
Can you confirm he was working for Mr. Veseli at the time? Within the organization that Mr. Veseli was heading, SHIK?
I believe he did, yes.
Referred to a nickname that he used at the time, Palumbi. Now, after the Palumbi unit was folded down, do you know what function Mr. Ferhat Şala went on to perform once he had ceased to be a member or the head of that unit?
I don't know.
Of him exercising any function other than an intelligent function?
I don't know.
Now, if we can go into private session for the protection of a witness, please.
Thank you, Judge Smith. Mr. Whit.
Your Honours, we are now in public session.
Good afternoon, Mr. Witness. In your interview with the SPO in January 2021, this is page 5 of part 4, you were asked, quote, amongst your tasks as a member of the ZKZ, did you also conduct interviews with either civilians or soldiers to find out information that would be relevant to your job? Your answer was, surely yes, of course, yes. Do you remember providing that answer?
I don't believe I did. We were not involved in any interviews with civilians or other officials.
At page 13 of part 4 of your interview, you said, quote, if someone would hang out with a Serb, the intention was to get a passport quickly, to get the document quickly. In terms of find out a collaborator in intelligence that had to be evidenced, closed quote. Do you remember providing that answer?
I might have said so. I do not recall the details. However, I can give explanations or clarify this. That person, a person who spent time or frequented a simple policeman in order to obtain a document in a faster way, that was not a collaborator. He would be in touch with that policeman only for a personal reason, to get an ID. At that time, an ordinary person in Kosovo had to struggle to survive and provide for their families. And in order to travel to Western countries, one needed a passport. But that doesn't make that person a collaborator of the Serbian regime.
Evidence would you need to have seen in order to make you conclude that a person was a collaborator?
If they were in possession of documents proving a recruitment, collaboration, direct involvement with the Serbian police.
To ask you a question which you were asked in that interview, but your answer was not very clear to me, and that is the difference between intelligence and counterintelligence. Could you explain to the court the difference between those two?
I did not deal with this matter. However, the notion of intelligence and counterintelligence would be the Serb informants having infiltrated the KLA ranks or a specific environment. This would have been the main focus of the counterintelligence. So to uncover potential infiltrators within the KLA ranks. This is how I understood it, at least.
What about suspected collaborators within the Albanian civilian population? Would you consider information about that to be intelligence or counterintelligence?
I viewed as counterintelligence, but as I said, I did not have a professional background or education to deal with these matters. I dealt with them by default because it had to be done, not because I was a professional of that field. This is the reason why, from a professional viewpoint, there were many matters which we did not understand or were we able to deal with.
Information suggesting that foresters were passing information to the Serb forces about the location of KLA positions.
No, I did not have or hear of any such information.
Significant risk that within the KLA there were persons passing information to the Serb forces.
It would certainly be a risk if somebody was providing Serbs with information about our organization. This would have been inappropriate and dangerous information.
As an officer who had specific responsibilities in intelligence and counterintelligence to deal with that risk,
as I said, I did not undertake anything because I was not prepared, trained, and I did not deal with this. I dealt exclusively with the Serb forces positioning. I did not deal with individuals that would fall within this category.
ZKZ officers within the Pastric zone who were addressing the risk of there being collaborators within the ranks of the KLA.
For what I know, it was Javid Bayraktari. However, he was not professionally trained either to deal with these matters.
And what do you mean by that?
I must say that it is difficult to professionally deal with a person who's highly trained and formed by the Serbian services. You wouldn't be of any use if you're not trained to deal with that.
Madam Prosecutor, any follow-up questions to the judge's questions?
Your Honor, just one very short question. When, Mr. Chochai, when Judge Barte asked you questions about checkpoints at the Morina border, you said that it was impossible. I would like to know whether you were at the Morina border crossing between Kosovo and Albania on the 12th or 13th or 14th of June 1999.
I don't recall being there. However, I would have heard from somebody if there had been any roadblocks or something similar.
Did you hear or did you talk to anyone about this issue? Do you remember?
I did not hear.
Thank you. No further questions.
Yes, Your Honours, I would ask to have just one matter clarified before I ask questions, if I do have any, and that's in relation to Judge Matro's questions about Ferit Shala. There were certain suggestions put that he had said certain things, and I wanted to ask what was the basis for that. Is there a particular statement or evidence being referred to? That might well then affect the questions that I have to ask. And I would also then, once I have that information, ask for a short 5-minute break. I'm not going to be very long if I do ask any questions, but there's one matter that I do have to check that may arise from this.
I can assist again. You're in luck today, Mr. Dixon. The ERN you will want to look at is 077937 TRET, and there's various parts, but I'll give you those I have at hand, including Part 1, page 21 and following, Part 2, page 1 and following, page 9 and following, and page 20. I hope it assists.
Yes, thank you, Honor. It indeed does assist, because I was wanting to understand if that was a statement from him, which I understand this refers to. But that statement, as I understand it, is not in evidence presently. It was disclosed under Rule 103 as an exculpatory material. So I just wanted to know what the basis of using that was when it's not material that's in evidence. Of course, I can nevertheless refer to it, but we need to know what the status of that material is in order to be able to then use it in any questioning.
Well, I think you just said it, Mr. Dixon.
So as I understand it, that's the only basis for the statement that's not in evidence, which is the basis for asking the question.
Yes.
Yes, in light of that, Your Honours, and I will certainly be finished in time to ensure the witness can be released today. I'll leave that to them. Thank you.
We will take a 5-minute break as requested. Witness, you can step out of the courtroom for 5 minutes. We're adjourned for 5 minutes.
All rise. All rise.
Be seated. Please bring the witness in.
Your Honour, before that's done, thank you for the time. I was wanting the additional time just to obtain a copy of an oral order that was made by Your Honours on the 5th of June 2024 regarding notice from the judges. If material is going to be used that was disclosed to the defence pursuant to Rule 103. There was an order made by Your Honour saying that we have to get notice as the defence if such material is going to be used. That was done by Judge Metro today with the statement that was disclosed to us from Mr. Shala. We didn't receive any notice. And that's why I was asking the question about what the basis of it was, because there has been a breach of the court's own order here. And that's why I wanted to raise this to say that those questions that were put and the answers shouldn't be considered by Your Honours. I know you can't strike from the record, but in light of the breach of the order, that should be noted. And that should be on the record as material that cannot be used because of the breach of this order. It's the order of 5 June 2024. I have a copy. I needed the time to obtain it.
few more questions, witness. Mr. Dixon?
Thank you, Your Honours. So I only have a few questions arising. Thank you for answering those. The first is in relation to a question that was asked by Judge Gaynor, where you mentioned the name of Mr. Bayraktari being in the intelligence sector of the zone. Do you recall that?
Po.
Yes.
To clarify, it's right, isn't it, that Mr. Bayraktari was only in the intelligence sector for a very short time. He joined you at the end of April 1999 and then was subsequently killed in the conflict on the 2nd of May 1999. Is that right?
Është e vërtetë.
That's right.
Short time that he was there, it's right that you didn't have any interaction with him or knew what tasks he was performing.
Jo, nuk kam ditë konkretisht.
That's correct. I did not know his specific tasks.
Kysh për një person që nuk
We are talking about a person who did not have any professional training.
Yes, thank you. I also wanted to ask you some questions about Mr. Kudraku in light of the questions that were posed to you by Judge Metro. It's correct, isn't it, that you spent a substantial amount of time with Mr. Kudraku after you were appointed and worked with him from January of 1999?
e vërtetë.
That's correct.
You didn't share the same office, but it's right, isn't it, that you attended at his office where he was on a number of occasions?
Ne kemi qenë një trup, domethënë
We were a sole organ or organization, but there weren't that many issues involving the ZKZ that would have led us to spend long hours together in the same office.
But you did discuss with him when you were at his office the work that you were doing on gathering information about Serb positions. Isn't that right?
Po.
Yes.
He shared information with you about what he had obtained in his position?
Zakonisht për pozicione.
With respect to positions, we would usually exchange information we had noted down, both. So if I was in the office, I received information, noted it down, and in order for Mr. Chodrako to do then the same thing when I was not in the office.
Claire, when that information was shared, do you know where it was passed up in the zone structure?
Personi konkret ka qenë.
The specific person in question was the zone commander. In his absence, there was the deputy commander and the chief of staff of the zone. These were the three key persons, the first one being the zone commander.
Information or the discussions that you were having, that wasn't passed on separately and directly to anyone in the general staff. That's correct, isn't it?
Nuk mund ta besoj.
I don't think this could have happened. I don't think anything could have been passed on easily apart from the zone command. We were accountable and reported to the zone commander. Now, I am not in a position to say anything as to how this would have been done from the zone level further.
Yes, in relation to what Commander Drini was doing or reporting on, you're not able to say how that occurred, are you?
Everything.
That's correct.
But you have no reason to believe, is this right, that Mr. Kadraku was going around the zone commander and separately reporting to the general staff himself?
Nuk ka qenë e mundur.
This was not possible to circumvent the zone commander. He would have needed the permission from the zone commander with a reasoning as to why he would go somewhere else. So the zone commander, the deputy commander, and the chief of staff. This was the hierarchy.
To believe that in practice, Mr. Kadraku was going past the command in the zone directly to the general staff. Is
Objection. Asked and answer.
Well, I'm asking what happened in
Overruled.
practice.
Go ahead.
Nuk ka pas arsye, nuk e di.
There was no reason. I wouldn't know. I'm not able to give you a specific answer, but he had no reason he wouldn't have done so.
For answering my additional questions. Those are my further questions. Thank you, Your Honours.
Anybody else have questions for this witness?
No, thank you.
No, Your Honour.
No, thank you, Your Honour.
Witness, your testimony is now complete. You will be excused now. Your obligation to the court is satisfied. Thank you for being with us, and we wish you well.
Thank you.
Might ask the prosecution what the plans for tomorrow are.
Yes, Your Honor. Based on the information that we currently have, we anticipate that witness WO4264 will be available for testimony tomorrow morning. I also have one more matter. The two associated exhibits, P01836 and P01837, can be marked as public.
Those two exhibits will be reclassified as public. Anything else from anyone?
Yes, Your Honours, I would return, if I may, to the request we made regarding the breach of the oral order. We would ask that that be acknowledged and that those parts of the transcript...
I know you did that. You already did.
And Mr. Dixon, you may want to reread the whole order. We said we will endeavor. You've read the order.
Yes, now I have a
Had I had prior knowledge of this matter arising from the questioning, including from you, I would have given you that notice. I was not in a position to do that, Mr. Dixon.
Your request does not have to be repeated. You've already made that request. Thank you.
And also the second request would be, the last thing, Your Honours, is in relation to the part that was in private session today, that be dealt with immediately if it concerns Mr. Kadraku, the following witness, who hasn't asked for protective measures, that be dealt with at the beginning of his testimony when he does testify. Yes. Yes.
Yes.
I'm just signaling that that's a matter that we will want to return to at the beginning of his testimony. Thank you, Your Honours.
Sorry, Mr. President. Yeah, I know, right? Thank you, Mr. President. I wanted to put on the record with respect to tomorrow's witness, W04264. We obviously don't know the reasons that there was a rescheduling, but to the extent that there's anything that would be subject or could be subject to cross-examination with regard to the reasons for that, if that could be disclosed to us tonight so that we have a fair opportunity to look at it. If there's nothing that the prosecution thinks could be the subject of cross-examination, then obviously nothing needs to be done. Thank you.
Compliance with that request should be done by 5 o'clock today.
Yes, Your Honor. An official note was disclosed this morning.
I saw the note, but that note had nothing to do with why there was a rescheduling.
Could you double check that, please?
We can, yes, I'll double check, but that was the information in our possession that we could disclose.
All rise.